Buongiorno, 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 ben arrivati.
Good morning and welcome.
Allora, intanto un caro saluto a tutti quelli che sono qua.
Well, first of all, my special greetings to all of you attending as well as those who are following on the streaming. My name is Alberto Mattiello, and I will be taking you on a journey. And the goal to this journey is trying to understand how the new Salone del Mobile will actually take place in its 46th edition.
Cominciamo subito bene.
You see, we're starting really well.
Perdonatemi, intanto facciamo un po' di
Well,
84esima edizione, ovviamente.
Well, yes, again, it is not a 46, but it is actually a 64. So I would love to say hello to Carla Morogallo, director from Triennale Milano. Thank you so much for the kind hospitality. Unfortunately, the president cannot be with us today, although we do have a video from him. Please. Good morning and welcome to Triennale. I am really sorry I cannot be with you today. Unfortunately, there is a prior international meeting that I was bound to attend. But I was very keen on sharing with you my special greetings. Greetings with Maria Porro and the whole of the team, which will be leading the next Salone del Mobile. First of all, let me tell you that I'm totally aware that partnership between Salone del Mobile and Triennale Milano has become truly well established and has generated over the years important moments for collaborations, which have become intense, gradually more intense. I do believe such collaboration is doing a lot of good to Milan, to the city of Milan, to the quality, to creativity of the world of design in this very city. So I'm so very happy that I can welcome you all to Triennale today. I am positive it would only bring to some new challenges, because this is what we're faced with in our role. Thank you so much for being with us today. Thank you.
Per aprire questo percorso, è un piacere dare subito la parola al sindaco di Milano.
I would love to immediately leave the floor to Mayor of Milan, Giuseppe Sala.
Prego.
Grazie, buongiorno a tutte e a tutti, molto rapido.
Thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I will be very quick and concise as we look forward to listening to the novelties for the Salone this year. Well, no doubt, Salone is renovating itself. It means that it's paying attention to times passing by. And this is a discipline that we should all incorporate to some extent. What I mean is that times are asking now that we should pay more attention to young people, and we should do it. If times are telling us that cities and communities are now becoming more open and oriented toward the international geography, well, we should be willing to do so. And talking through the industry, well, if times are now saying to us that families are more struggling and you're going to be selling less, well, now the contact becomes even more important. Now, let me tell you that I do very much appreciate, considering the family I come from. I do very much appreciate the spirit you are now kind of embedding in interpreting this new and beautiful opportunity. Milan comes with many pros and cons. It is struggling many times, but it is never giving up to the spirit of collaboration. And what we're going to be seeing today, it really stands out as the best spirit for collaboration. When I say collaborate, and this is very applicable to politicians as well, well, it means that you want to be open, straightforward to your citizens. You want to tell your citizens how things are going. We're very close to opening the Olympics. And some journalists were saying February 6th, schools are closed. Well, let me tell you then, things do not just happen by chance, you know. anything that is taking place here, it requires everybody to fully commit, and you have to take this into account. I'm sure that this is the only way for us to evolve and grow, although Milan it is struggling under many different perspectives, but I'm pretty sure that the pathway is already quite paved for us. So approaching my conclusion saying thank you. Well, a huge thank you to all of you, starting from Maria, of course, also to all of you being part of this beautiful industry. I'm happy that Milan has now become a homeland of design to some extent, but of course we want to make this possible today, tomorrow, and truly support all of these companies that have made this possible day after day. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mayor.
Invito a salire sul palco il presidente di
I will now invite a president of the Lombardy region, Attilio Fontana.
Buongiorno a tutti.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for this kind invite. Well, the reason why I'm saying thank you, well, I am a great fan. I'm a great supporter of Salone del Mobile. Region Lombardy has always been by your side, trying to facilitate your way through. Now, it is kind of useless to repeat ourselves. Salone del Mobile is extremely important for the city of Milan, for the whole of the region, for the whole of the country, I would even say, because it is literally making Milan the homeland of creativity, as well as a kind of making collaborating tradition, manufacturing, domestic innovative technologies, well, as well as the ability to pursue sustainability in all of the value chains, and then craftsmanship, and again, creativity, which very belongs to our territory. And this is truly unique, something exceptional, and we want this to carry on as it is. Well, clearly, we are coping with several challenges out there from a geopolitical standpoint. There are so many things happening out there, things that perhaps we could not even consider back in 2019, before the pandemic was hitting. You know, we would have perhaps said back then, oh, we're not going to be able to manage all of this challenge. Well, instead, we made it. We were able to cope with the skyrocketing prices, energies. And again, this was something that nobody would really expect. We were all thinking that we might collapse, but it didn't happen. Now, what we're presenting today, well, we're presenting something new. We're presenting novelty, something that will truly contribute to overcome these difficulties and troubles, and to ensure that Salone del Mobile can still own its identity whilst adapting to the needs that both society and the world outside are kind of imposing somehow. It will be really interesting to listen to all of you, and it will be even more beautiful to know that amongst the leaders within this very industry, well, these leaders have a vision, they are knowledgeable of the difficulties, and they'll find their way to overcome the challenges. So this is why I'm thankful. This is why I'd love to say thank you to the President, to the whole of her staff, and of course Lombardy cannot do without Salone del Mobile. Salone del Mobile, strong as it is, and a model of inspiration throughout the world. Thank you. Thank you, President.
Allora, prima di immergerci in tutto il racconto.
Now, before we very much dive into what's going to happen to next Salone, I'd love to take a few minutes to kind of set the context. So let me describe the industry a little bit. Although I'm very much involved in technology and innovation, and my task is trying to understand how technology is impacting our way of doing business. So I have to say that over the years, what I really understood is that when there's a paradigm shift in technology, there are three things happening. Firstly, behaviors. Secondly, expectations that we have. And obviously, the markets will react accordingly, delivering new services. So I thought it would be interesting, perhaps, to share with you some of the signals of things that are going to happen over the next few months and years, well, which surely are going to impact our way of inhabiting and living. Some examples. I've been based in Miami for 20 years or so. If you walk around Miami, I have to say, over the last 3-4 months, you will come across advertisement, billboards, posters, saying that starting January 2026, a humanoid robot can come to your house and do the house cleaning for $400, $500 a month. And we're not talking about in 10 years' time, okay? We're talking about today. He's now fully independent. Somebody still has to teach him how to do and what to do, but is a little more than a normal appliance, right? You agree with me. So what we can perhaps expect in the future is that we're going to have a kind of systems, these systems who are going to be living with us, and what's going to happen to the pieces of furniture at the same time? Well, pieces of furniture will kind of have a hybrid coexistence. And what is the goal here? Well, is to have a way of living where we do perceive perhaps something that we kind of struggle with, like housekeeping. Well, machines will do in our place. So this means that design will probably shift from product to a more commonly shared lifestyle work technology. Let me share the second signal. We're now getting used to using AI. We do it in our private life as well as our working life. Something that most likely is becoming stronger and stronger is that our relationship with AI will become more intimate. And now AI is understanding us, and we're going to have a more customized relationship. So we're very much at the beginning of this journey, but no doubt that this will have an impact. Because the moment you start having expectations and you expect the machine to know you, to understand you, well, this very need for a more of a customized relationship will also translate into the physical world. So in the future, most likely, you will not seek for something that is more standardized, but instead, you will look for uniqueness. You will look for something that is more peculiar. Uniqueness might become kind of the cultural answer to the hyper customization that technology is making available to all of us. But let me get to the third signal. A couple of weeks ago, I was attending this technology exhibition, and one of the key things that I was coming across was the age tech. All of those technologies that would allow us to live longer and in a more comfortable manner, in a more independent manner. So, meaning having a more comfortable life the longest time possible. Now, this is a growing industry on the one side, but on the other side, it is using a language which is very far away from the medical aspect. So there are a number of environments which are going to be more precious in our homes, well, namely the bathroom. We're going to have a more intimate relationship with age tech in the bathroom in the future.
So obviously what we're talking about is systems that can not only monitor our lives, so this is something that, of course, belongs a little bit to the past, I would say, but we will get more and more used to this year, having AI, having technology that is going to be proactive. So not only will it be reacting or supporting our commands, but even before we know, it will know what we need. And this, once again, will be an important technological change, because it won't be enough to have a machine that knows what happened or what has happened in the past, but I want to have a machine that knows, before I do, what is about to happen. So I'm going to go now to my last point, which is that it's obvious that all of the infrastructure of material that the digital can give us and provide us with is going to be more and more strategic for us. If I think about business systems, if I think about trade fairs, about any kind of activity, more and more the immaterial part is going to be a fundamental part of what we buy. So we're no longer buying furniture, but we're buying infrastructure made of data, made of relationships, of contents, and updates. And this dynamic is necessarily going to deeply change all of our markets. One of the very interesting things is that when technologies change the rules, it's important to have antennas that allow you to understand how this is going to impact our markets. And the Salone del Mobile has always been one of those places where the future becomes obviously a common and shared culture. Now, obviously, to dive into this new edition, I would like to call to the stage Maria Porro, who is the president of Salone del Mobile.Milano. Hi, Maria. Hello, good morning. Right, so we have a lot of things to discuss, but before we do, a humanoid robot, how do you imagine that in your own home? Would you have one? Would you wait a little bit? I don't know. My mom gave me a book by Asimov when I was young. I think I was in middle school at the time, and one of my favorite films is Blade Runner. So maybe the answer would be, I don't know, but you leave a door open. Yes, exactly. There are some hubs already where you can detox from your smartphone and so on. So, of course, we need to see where the balance is, maybe. I don't know. I don't have the answer to that. Well, maybe I would say that the balance needs to be on all of these elements, exactly. But let's start from the use of the metaphor of the campaign, which is Matter of Salone. I'm going to start this narrative by asking you what material, what matter this new Salone will be made of. Well, first of all, it is a live matter, I would say. In fact, the mayor of Milan, Sala, and President Fontana were saying this very well just now, that it's a matter that is able to interpret the complexity in which we live today and transform it into a design shape that considers many different ingredients, that considers, for instance, the dimension of industry, but also of manufacture, which is the pulsating heart of the Salone. We think about the cultural dimension as well and the international dimension, which is absolutely crucial to the Salone, and therefore it's even more important to read these big changes you're talking about. Okay, so we have many things to look at in detail, and we have 1.5 hours where we will talk about many of these issues. But I wanted to start, before we look at the figures, by asking you one thing. If you were to say, what is the most important decision that you had to make and that we will therefore see in this new edition? What was it? Well, I would say that the international scenario is highly complex. So I would say the most important decision we made, paradoxically, is to stop up in order to go more into depth and understand truly and fully, not just respond to a change, but intercepting the different directions of that change and transforming it in view of a design culture, which a big event like Salone is. So I think the most important decision was to accept a transformative dimension of the Salone, which is in fact also the challenge that all bigger organizations and institutions are facing right now. All right, so talking about transformation, I will look at the map of the Salone, and I would maybe start from here because I think there are several transformations. Yes, right. Let's talk about more concretely. You know the events, of course, the manifestations this year together with Mobile Complimento. We have the 2 biennials of kitchens and bathrooms, 2 dimensions or spaces where you were saying big scenarios are opening up, and also a technological transformation in the view of the longevity that you were talking about. And then we have some novelties, which is the Salone Raritas. We have other novelties that have become more concrete. So that's the example of the arena and of the bookshop that will be curated by Corraini, but then also other novelties, which are going to be, for instance, in Pavilion 13 and 15. Right, excellent. Do you want to look at the figures? Yeah, well, maybe I would start with the, let's say, more numerical part of our narrative today. Obviously, the basic numbers, which are the exhibition space, the number of exhibitors, and the countries represented at the Salone. What snapshot does this give us compared to other years, previous years, and where does the Salone want to go from here? Well, I think that these numbers show us a snapshot of a large solidity of an exhibition space that is entirely covered by exhibitors and a number of countries represented among these exhibitors, so 32 countries, which is a very significant number. So again, a pulsating heart, which is the Italian exhibitors, of course, but we do a constant job also with Maieci and with ICE, with international level, together with other companies in the Salone. And all of what we do is so important for the Italian manufacturers and companies. But even more important are the numbers, I think, after these, in the next slide, because they talk about the quality. Exactly, 227, and you can read it on the slide, are the new entries we have, new exhibitors or returning exhibitors. And this is a very interesting number because it gives us a snapshot of a Salone which has a dynamic nature inside it. So it's not just fixed in time, but it changes with time. It accompanies the companies that need to grow and transform themselves. Another very interesting percentage is the fact that we, for example, have 60% of new exhibitors who are European companies. And once again, here you can see the quality of the exhibitors at the Salone del Mobile. We have, as I say, a big core of Italian exhibitors, but also at the same time we're able of opening up to other companies that come from different countries, but who have the same research, same quality as Italian companies, both in terms of the product, but also in terms of the respect they have within their supply chain. And this second issue, this respect within the supply chain, is one of the most important issues today. Exactly, that's why we are showing also important changes that these numbers reflect. And I would maybe look at the last slide of numbers then, where we have the overall turnover and the export capacity of these companies who are exhibiting here. Yes, this is the first time, in fact, that we are calculating this number. We have a 68% of export quota, in fact, and this is a very, very high number compared both to the national average, but also to the European average. And what do I mean? That our exhibitors at the Salone del Mobile are companies that already have a strong propension towards export, but they choose the Salone as a tool to open up to new markets even more. In a moment when, and I think that President Feltrin will talk about this even more in detail, when we have consolidated markets going through a moment of crisis, this is very important for a company that is already structured to export, but to open up to new geographies. Right, I would go back 1 second to the Salone itself, and then, as I say, we'll have more time to go into depth with some of these issues in more detail. But I would like for you to tell me already if you have any new projects, new formats, the most important things we should anticipate here. Well, I would start maybe with one concept, which is that right now we are going through a moment of urgency. We are living in times of complexity, as we say. This should not lead us to act with, let's say, an excessively fast or impulsive response. But the effort we should make this year at the Salone is precisely to intercept these lines of development for our companies and for Salone itself as a tool for these companies, which should be lines of development that we can build over time, that can create long-lasting trajectories. And the Raritas Salone, for instance, that we talked about already, and that we will present today more in detail, is one of these trajectories. In fact, if you like it, this could be something that we have already been talking about in the history of design for many years. We are going to have an exceptional exhibition about Branzi, for instance, in the Salone. We're going to have several instances that show and reflect this. Design becoming one single piece in between serial production and uniqueness. But Raritas is also a way of explaining the longevity of these projects, because we will have not just galleries, but also antique sections. So talking about the fact that these are pieces that can go beyond the passage of time, that can last in time and acquire more value throughout time, is something truly extraordinary. And as you were saying now perfectly well, this personalization, the fact that technology creates something completely, or was something completely acceptable, can now talk to us with different languages depending on the interlocutor. What is the cultural aspect in that? Maybe it is truly something unique that can become a series-produced piece and last in time, or maybe it's a unique piece that can lay bare this handmade quality that risks becoming lost in time otherwise. And this is what Raritas will focus on. Oh, these seem like very different languages, and they respond to different market needs. Yes, exactly. And Mayor Sala was mentioning it just now, this word, the contract, right, which is an undescribable word almost. It's a kind of a gateway towards potential in the future and opportunity, but it's something actually very concrete that we work with and deal with every day in our companies. It's a line of development for the design industry and furniture industry, which is extremely important, but it requires a different potential, and that's why we have asked experts to come in and help us lay bare this new opportunity of development. Right, so I just wanted to take you 1 second towards inside the Salone, because for several years we've had this design research to see what could be the best experience for visitors and for exhibitors at the same time. And by experience, I know that in the past we maybe had pavilions not made necessarily with a grid, but conceived with in a different way. You even had a neuroscience research done on this. So what opportunities do we have here to create the best possible experience? Where are we today? Well, certainly all of this transformation, which focuses on certain aspects that are not so evident, maybe not so visible, but actually produce results, is a transformation we have been working with for more than 5 years and has become very concrete in the way we approach the Salone. And the digital system is an extraordinary example of that. So the whole digital infrastructure, which today is capable of allowing companies to make a booking, for instance, of an appointment with their interlocutors, or even reach interlocutors or make interlocutors meet that don't know each other, or things like that, even just a simple planning. And also through this new project that we launched last year and will continue with this year, is creating actual itineraries inside the Salone based on specific themes. And this is also where contract will play such an important role. Not to mention the whole graphic layout, so everything that we see when we walk through the pavilions, which helps us orient ourselves in space. This has completely been designed by Loft and is in view of guiding these more than 300,000 visitors from all over the world that need to walk through these pavilions kilometers and kilometers to guide them in the best possible way. So we have deployed a series of tools that will make the experience of the people who experience the Salone more valuable every moment and every second of their day. Also, in order to get a return in terms of visibility and contacts for the companies that invest in the Salone, because this is another part that, of course, is absolutely essential to us. Right, so as a last question, I would take you outside the site of the Salone itself, because the Salone has always invested also in Milan, building several cultural projects, for instance, Robert Wilson last year, Est Erwin. And this year I was curious what is going to happen outside the Salone. Well, the Salone reinforces the structural bond it has, of course, with the city of Milan and with the territory around it, with the specific aim of enhancing what already exists. And this is already in itself something extraordinary, enhancing the value of the existing. So Robert Wilson, you were talking about with Castello Sforzesco, and of course I thank the city for giving us the opportunity of working on this project, and also Pinacoteca di Brera and the Library of Light, which was like a flower that sent out all of its seeds all through the world, where everybody's talking about the Salone and about Milan today. This year, our experience is going to be doubled up with this kiosk in the Scala, and a little kiosk also. We're going to have a new stand in Piazza della Scala, and we're going to discover with an architect, through the glance of a young criticism, what the architectures, the hidden architectures are.
Our commitment is truly to value what is existing already. So we do have several exhibitors which will also exhibit throughout the city of Milan. Something else that we're truly proud of, and something that actually is going to happen at Cinema Anteo on 16th of April, Lost and Roll, the movie around Salone del Mobile from Gianluca Vassallo. He will be projected in one of my favorite cinemas in all times, and I'm sure many people agree with me. There's another project that we don't want to unveil anything yet. There are still some secrets that we want to keep for ourselves. But again, the aim is truly to value what exists already, as I've said. So this idea of interconnection in institutions, well, this is the reason why we're in Triennale today. You know, cultural institutions which operate throughout the city 365 days a year. Thank you, Maria. Thank you so much. Big round of applause. I will ask you to come back on stage in a moment. Now, before we actually move to the next content, I'd love to close a bit around the digital services that Salone will make available to citizens, exhibitors, and visitors. Of course, when you consider Salone, the very first thing that comes to your mind is products, companies, the booths, the itineraries. But behind Salone, to call it in a softer manner, there's a whole of a back end of less visible materials, which becomes increasingly strategic for companies and exhibitors. So now, to talk through the services, without delving into details, I'd like to share with you the kind of general offer, which keeps growing, by the way. So let me just start from the very first one. You want to use digital to develop connections. Well, first of all, exhibition does not mean traffic. It means meeting up with people, and it means that you want to develop a whole community following this. And relative to these services, there's matchmaking, how to make an appointment, as you've heard already, and also the possibility to perhaps integrate to the CRM of a given company. That gives you the possibility to find details and perhaps build on them in the future. So the whole of the ecosystem has this final goal to develop meetings which may last over time. The second value is what I would call discoverability, and this is as important in terms of services being offered by Salone. Well, no doubt that we are hypersaturated with content. It is not enough to be there. You have to make yourself readable. When I say readable, it's not just readable for people who are coming, visitors, exhibitors, and so on, but you have to be readable for platforms, for browsing, for engines, and more for AI. So all of the brand pages and digitized pages will help the company to do exactly that. So to show what the real contents are for that company, what the company means to get across. There's a third crucial word, what I would call journey. Again, this is truly one of the most intense goals, because you want to help people find their way around throughout companies and how to make their time valuable. So digital world finding and discoverability, and so they all have this goal altogether. The last one, which kind of goes all across, so the digital support to Salone is very much a support company to outperform. And again, I'd love perhaps to share with you a general idea on how the Salone is now being structured. Well, over the years, you must know Salone has developed a whole of an infrastructure, a kind of starting from ticketing office, for instance, which means to actually make it available to people, to make available a digital offer. And actually, the current database includes several thousand profiles, and it is perhaps the most complete database in a given industry. And all of this data, of course, can be made available to the company backwards. So now I really would like to start to be more vertical on the several contents, and I'd love to start from the kitchen. Now, we do all know this is a very one-of-a-kind year for Italy. UNESCO has recently recognized the Italian kitchen as a world heritage, and it's not just about a single dish, but it is the whole set of values that is really making the Italian kitchen unique. Now, what's interesting here is that this is not I'm not just taking a snapshot of still life or something like that, because a kitchen, of course, in Italy, it keeps changing, it keeps evolving, it keeps incorporating new habits, new recipes, new ingredients. And it is exactly around this dynamic system that a kitchen means to start from. And something else I'd love to remind you all. Now, this recognition from UNESCO also is telling us that kitchen, at the end of the day, is a room. It is a crucial room, though, because it is very much conditioning the way we also cook our dishes, and also the way we eat, and the way we kind of socialize and have gatherings in the same room. So I do have a very special guest to talk through this, a chef, patron, and activist, FAO heroine. And she'll be telling us about relationship between kitchen society and sustainability. I'd love to give a warm welcome to chef, patron, and activist Cristina Bauerman.
Ben arrivata. Prego. Allora, io
Welcome.
partirei in questa nostra chiacchierata intanto
Well, first of all, I'd like to start from a memory, if you allow me to, before we actually dive into more market dynamics. Now, your very first memory, if I say kitchen, perhaps a material or a smell, what crosses your mind? Well, first of all, I'd love to thank you all for this kind invite. This is a beautiful, very interesting event. Really proud to be here today. Now, I talk about a smell. Very first memory, it brings me back to a smell, to fragrance. My primary school was not too far from where I would live, and I would smell jasmine, you know, on my way back home. And then the moment vinegar was just coming through my nose, I knew that my mum were probably preparing artichokes in vinegar. But also I could mention sofrito. You know, sofrito would tell me that my dad was actually doing the cooking on that day. So it is smell, but it's memory at the same time. Well, it's unbelievable how the smell can actually bring all of these memories back. Let me ask a second question. When you see a kitchen for the first time, and what is the one element or more elements that you look at and say, oh, this has been designed the way it should be? Well, we move around kitchens, and of course it is very different to be in a professional kitchen rather than a home kitchen. Perhaps when I say space, you know, the very first thing that I look at is space, and then some elements that might feel kind of excited. And this was something that I was recently talking through with a friend of mine, because there was one thing that I'd love to bring to my home right away, and that is, well, of course, because the kitchen are now shrinking in cities like Milan because of a lack of space. Now you want to maximize space, right? And I was looking at this countertop, beautiful countertop, beautiful. And all of a sudden, this person, she was bringing out some placemats, and she started to do the cooking. And of course, she wouldn't have any problem with the heat or anything. What was striking to me on that day, and that she was actually using space in two different ways. Space is vital nowadays, you know. As I said, kitchen tend to shrink nowadays in homes, in private homes. So every centimeter is crucial, is important. I could also mention other examples, such as those people adopting a good lifestyle, and this has become so important for individuals, especially those who are perhaps aging and they want to have a healthier nutritional style. And I'm thinking about steam machines, for instance, which is becoming also very important. Well, this is interesting. A steam machine could also, a steam cooker can obviously also support under many different perspectives. Oh yeah, this is very true. And I was reading on a magazine around the new trends. It was from World Economic Forum, from Michelin Guide, you know, and people, they're kind of challenging themselves about what is the next trend. Well, what you're eating will translate into what you are and into what your status is. status is cultural status, man. And 2026 is healthy food, is healthy nutrition. How keen are you on what you're having and what you're eating? And this is something that I'm truly happy with, you know, because you mentioned the matter, the materials, pieces of furniture perhaps being designed and manufactured elsewhere, along with the savoir-faire and craftsmanship of Italian people. Well, this is exactly the same with food. You know, people are now asking themselves, where is this ingredient coming from? How are we going to use it? Is it going to be a healthy one? And this is really something that I'm working around within FAO. As you said, I'm an activist for FAO as well. This is becoming increasingly important, and thanks to the support of technologies, along with design, I'm sure we can do a very good job. Let me bring you back to professional kitchen, perhaps, rather than home kitchen. So, if you were to say the one thing in a professional and in a professional manner that is really crucial and something that you would possibly find also in home kitchen. Well, there's always been, to me, kind of an osmosis between the two worlds. So traditional home kitchen and professional. So they're kind of drawn inspiration from one each other. Because we keep running in this world, I would mention perhaps the blaster chiller as the first example, or maybe paying attention to the Mediterranean diet on some lighter food and lighter cuisine. You know, I come from the southern part of a country, and we're very much into that. But also a crock pot. You know, you go to work. How could we translate this English word into Italian? Well, I can't help, I'm afraid. But basically, we're talking about pots that might become really sophisticated, and they will bring the one ingredient to the perfect cooking, and they will just keep it on that temperature for a number of hours. It's like having your laundry ready when you start in your washing machine in the morning, you know. Or let's consider ovens and baking systems, which are really allowing the perfect cooking, same as a restaurant or very close to. Simply using them in a friendly manner, very intuitive manner. You see what I mean? And it allows us to eat good, to eat healthy. Let's consider a chilled ingredient. You bring it in the oven. It will defrost. It will bake. It will cook, and it's ready. You know. And yeah, but then. Let me go back to the professional kitchen. How would you actually bring into your professional kitchen from your home kitchen? So the other way around. Well, I like to consider Italian cuisine as healthy food primarily, and well, there are several things which we bring into a professional kitchen. Well, the way you smoke, for instance, the way you smoke foodstuffs. Of course, you can smoke foodstuffs through some sophisticated instruments, but they're actually coming from your home kitchen. Perhaps not in every home kitchen, but this is something that you can definitely use in a restaurant as well through these very instruments. And there's one thing that I'd love to have in my home, from my home to the restaurant actually. Well, chimneys, they're horrible because they heavily pollute the air. I used to live very close to a restaurant, and I could tell you that I could actually spot ashes on my pieces of furniture. But now hoods are not just above cookers, but they're also being equipped with special filters, which makes it extremely environmental friendly, but also allows you to breathe better. One last thing, if Eurocucina was telling one thing about kitchen today, not so much as an object, but as a space for life, what would that be? Well, space for life, I would say that there should be this kind of a reproduction of the beating heart of your house. So whatever you experience in your home, and this is the one thing perhaps that you want to get across, especially in Italy. Kitchen is at the core of your home, and it is also at the core of relations, which is everything in life, Android or not, right? Well, this was marvelous. Thank you, Christina Bauerman. Thank you once again.
A questo punto passiamo a un altro.
Okay, so at this point, we can move on to another chapter, because from the 21st to 26th of April, we will have the International Bathroom Fair. And this is also a world that is going through a series of transformations. In fact, a recent research done by Nike GfK Italy for Assobagno, which is called the Bathroom Design Monitor. They sampled about 3,000 consumers in Italy, France, and Germany, and talked to them, anyone who had just restructured or modernized their bathroom or was planning to do so in the near future. And the results show several interesting things. I just wanted to quote a few. First of all, you can see that the physical store is still at the center of people's attention. 90% of purchases are made in a brick-and-mortar store, or in any case, people are looking for a certain kind of skill and competence when they want to make an important choice. So we still need people who have that direct competence. And on the other hand, there's a kind of a ranking of criteria that consumers tap into when they need to make this kind of a choice. At place number 1 was the function. Second place was the quality-price ratio, but the third place was solidity or robustness of the design, so long-lastingness of the product. These, of course, are factors that go hand in hand, so it's important to have all three. But I just wanted to talk a little bit about the robustness for a second, because this is something that kind of brings us back to the word that we have used a few times already, which is longevity. And why longevity? Because in the end, it combines several elements. On the one hand, it combines, let's say, the world of the design, the industry, but also the expectation, the life expectancy. So we have a certain expectation towards those products that they should last a certain amount of time. So since we have made this connection with longevity here as well, we decided to invite a guest. I'm talking about Marco Sammichele, the curator of the design, fashion, and craftsmanship sector of the Triennale of Milan and director of the Museum of Italian Design. Marco. Welcome to the stage. And one of the important things, in fact, that we need to mention is that you were a co-curator here at the Triennale of an exhibition called The Republic of Longevity. So, In Health We Trust was the subtitle. I don't know if you want to mention something about that. In health equality we trust, okay? So longevity not just as it's like an equality right. Okay, that was the meaning of the exhibition. I would maybe go more into detail with that. So in the world of the design project itself, I have a couple of questions to talk about longevity. What is longevity exactly? I mean, is it just a long-lasting element, or is it a cultural relevance that lasts over time? Well, for a museum, longevity is, I would say, cultural relevance in time. For a design museum, on the other hand, I would say it's the long-lastingness of products or of objects. And how do you measure that long-lastingness? That is how the products and objects respond to people's behavior. We have said several times that behavior changes over time, but the ability of Italian genius and of this trade fair has always been that of interpreting these behaviors and responding to the behavior with certain objects. And these objects remain in the catalogs of our companies, they live on in the collections of museums, and they are explained due to their peculiarity and their strength. Right, but if you were to say, what difference is there between a project that gets old in a good way, let's say, and a project that continues to have a meaning? I would say it's a sense of limitation. This is what really determines the difference, because I think longevity is not just a trend, but it's a precondition, and it's a way of measuring time and taking possession of it again with our experience. And this is the longevity that we really need. Right, so moving along this train of thought, if longevity becomes a guiding value for us, is there then something that we need to give up or sacrifice at a certain point? Yes, we will have to give up, let's say, the obsessive pace or rhythm of seasonality. We have to sacrifice the idea that we need to change in order to live on, that we need to transform ourselves to keep being there. This is no longer interesting, and it's not something that has been proven in history. We need to be able to innovate within the trace of a certain typology. If this happens, then the user will recognize this and the client will buy. This will open up to a series of reasonings, of course, from a point of view of technology that I don't have time to go into here, but I think this is an excellent answer. It's very, very insightful. Of course, we will live longer on average, supposedly. We will use our spaces for longer amounts of time. And how is this changing the world of design? Well, it is changing the world of design because the words that the design world uses includes one word that has 4 letters, which is care. So the fact of taking care of yourself and of others. More so when we talk about bathrooms, because for many generations, the bathroom has always been that room on the end of the hall and to the right, right? Today, it's the room where we take care of ourselves, where we recognize ourselves. So this issue of rethinking ourselves and gaining awareness of what surrounds us in these spaces is very necessary. Right. And from the point of view of the Triennale of Milan, the longevity, how is that managed here? I mean, do you protect, do you anticipate? Well, on the occasion of the 24th International Exhibition, when I curated this exhibition with Nick Palmarino. Nick Palmarini is an Italian researcher and scholar, and he's the international authority on any research about longevity. He directs the National Innovation Center for Aging in the UK. So we imagined something that was inside a public institution, was dedicated to the culture of design, and was supposed to interpret the specific role of a creative industry, which is the industry of design, inside this debate about longevity. And that's why we ideally imagined establishing a republic that could be based on the 5 fundamental values. 3 are the values that our doctor always reminds us of. So physical activity, eating and drinking in a healthy way, sleeping enough each night, and so on. And the 2 other values, together with Nick and the team at the Triennale, we invented them to add them on. One was to have a purpose in life, so nourishing your existence with the vertical passions, which is fundamental in life. Some people collect Picasso paintings, others collect football cards. So this is an example of a fundamental ingredient of longevity. And the 5th value was being together. Maybe this is something we would like to exercise after the tragedy of the pandemic, is going back to being together, touching each other, hugging each other, dancing, having fun in a way which maybe can be invited by technology but doesn't find a binding tool in technology. Right, so in the collection of the museum, do you have a project, going back to the bathroom, that has gone beyond this capacity of time, that has lasted through time? Yes, I want to quote 2. Just now we had President Wismara, and of course he has designed a bathroom, so I'm not going to mention any brands, but I want to mention 2 stories that I think are absolutely marvelous. One is Antonia Campi, who is a pioneer of bathroom design, and she chose with the bathroom Gardenia to bring color and nature into bathroom equipment, and everything became blossomed and became colorful and green. And then Obidetti Balocchi from Mercatali Petrizetti, because in the faucets with them, colors also come into play. And we see that today we talk a lot about wellness, about care, but if we decline that issue and that theme in time, you have irony, you have play, you have the will to dedicate some time to yourself when you're inside that room. Thank you so much, Marco San Michele.
Passiamo ad un altro capitolo.
Now, moving on to the next chapter. As you have seen, this is a nice overview of many different contents today. But the next chapter is related to something that we have talked about several times, specifically the Raritas Salone, this part of the Salone, which of course is inserted into this rising tension, because on the one hand, we have all of the topics of industrial standardization, but also a question arises about uniqueness, about identity, about special pieces. And that's interesting because right now this is permeating and is becoming a central issue also in the world of contemporary design. So the Raritas Salone is a place where several worlds converge: antiques, crafted items, design, collector's items, and new creative geographies. To talk about this, we have three different voices with us today. So I'm asking to come to the stage, please, Annalisa Rosso, editorial director of the Raritas Salone, Andrea Trimarchi. Here we are.
Perfetto. E Sabine Marsalis, artista e designer.
And Sabine Marsalis, artist and designer. Thank you very much. You can sit wherever you like.
Thank you very much.
Okay, over here.
Okay. We're good to go. Quindi iniziamo ovviamente da Annalisa.
All right, so we're going to start with Annalisa, and I would love for you to talk about the international dimension of the design, and where does this insert itself inside a trade fair like the Salone? Well, I would say, or we would say really, because this is the interesting thing about this project, is that it comes from a rather long reflection. I mean, for several years now, especially with our president, Maria Porro, we have been talking about these issues. And we think that now is the right time to add, very naturally, one extra element to the Salone. As you know, we have 64 editions in the history of the Salone. And over that long history, we have had many different progresses. And the interesting thing about the Salone is that it's an extraordinary observatory to record, to understand. We also travel abroad quite a lot, so we perceive a series of things, and we try to give back. In fact, we have done so recently as well. We try to give back before others do. And this is exactly a response from our point of view to a need that we have interpreted and seen out there. We have seen it more and more of a conscious way as well, both on behalf of our target with the numbers we saw before, and also we've seen it in some exhibitors, which, as you have been saying, are not just the collectible ones, but also the people who do antiques, who do crafted items, and who deal with research that makes these items into something rare and valuable in themselves, just apart from the issue of collections and collecting items. So that's why we are trying to build a bridge for the first time between a target that already existed, exhibitors who already existed, but that this link was missing in the past. I think that in the past, and even today maybe, we're talking about design as a soft power, when buyers and contractors and the whole hospitality industry asks us for unique and special pieces. I think this is exactly what they're looking for, something that in terms of the identity and in terms of the value of the project, and we know many of the countries that come to the Salone, I mean, there's so many of them, we're trying to do a cherry picking here with different languages that could offer this type of mentality and philosophy. Obviously, this is not something that we can do ourselves. I want to thank Mattia Tebasti, the whole team that has worked together with me on this research, which has been extraordinary, also from a cultural point of view, the culture of design, I mean. And the exhibitors, of course, who are responding with a lot of enthusiasm. We have Sabine Marsalis here today, who's going to talk about her perspective. Her presence here is so important, and she will anticipate something already. She will be presenting a special project together with Collectional, which is a gallery in Dubai. But Nilofar will also be here. This is a gallery that has extraordinary spaces in Milan, but still wanted to be with us in the fair. We are going to have Brun Fine Art, an antique, international antique store that immediately responded with enthusiasm to our invitation, and more names on top of these. I'm very, very happy, and I finally feel like we're going to get started. We're going to have Bianco 67 with a real. This is a company that works with marble mainly, and they focus on the crafting, that Italian craftsmanship that we find to be extraordinary, and new technologies in a project that will be signed designed by Parasite 2.0 with a group of designers based in Milan. Then we will have some people coming in from Brazil. We'll have Salviati from Murano. We will have also something very special, which is the Soft Parade by Job Smith, designed for this new platform from the Emirates called Muramstad Design Edition, curated by Maria Cristina Didero. So really, we will have it all.
Well, marvelous. But of course, we wanted to provide a shape to all of this. So Andrea Trimarchi, co-founder from Forma Fantasma, you were actually asked how to kind of showcase all of these different voices. I do have a rendering, perhaps might be helpful somehow. If you can tell us what is behind this setup, this staging. Well, first of all, thank you so much. I'm so very happy to be here today. Thank you, Annalisa. Thank you to the whole Salone team for this great trust, because we've been collaborating for a number of years now on incredible projects. And this year, even more so, because on top of the practice that we've been developing, because I have to say that starting in 2020, we started to collaborate with many different museums. We've been on a Caravaggio and Bernini exhibition. We've been with Biennale in Venice. Recently, we exhibited an important project with a different museum. So let's say that moving around space and inside space is very important for us. This very opportunity is one of a kind, because Salone somehow is a commercial space, but at the same time we're being asked to consider it as a kind of a hybrid in between, you know, a kind of a museum but also a commercial space at the same time. So this was the real challenge for us. So how have we done it? Well, we haven't only worked on white cube, which is a kind of standard for museums. We have instead adopted our own approach, and which is color. Color matters materials. So we want to be the least neutral, you know, as possible. We want to leave an impact. We want to leave a sign, and we do this through colors and materials. And now this is just a general overview, but of course it's going to be very much different. I have to say Salone Raritas will include several colors and materials that exhibitors might be able to choose from. And we were kind of, you know, breaking this habit of a grid that had been existed for many years, and what we really wanted to have a more of a kind of a conversation, so in between the several components. And you spoke about wayfinding, how important that is. And from the outside, Salone Raritas will be kind of a beacon, you know, kind of a lighthouse, and what will help people to navigate through the Salone very easily. Something else I'd love to spend some words about, light. So we have kind of gotten rid of spotlights as much as possible, and we'd rather adopted horizontal panel light, which will kind of cast a softer light. One last comment, and then I'll leave the floor to Sabine. And perhaps one of the most important things, which really makes our practice unique, if you will, is paying attention to the ecology side. Well, we do actually expect Salone Raritas to survive over the next few years. Of course, it will change, it will be further implemented, but the whole of the staging and setup will not be discarded, will not be just removed and forgotten, you know? Thank you. Thank you.
So let me switch to English. Sabine, artista, a designer. So you work across of different industries. You work with industrial design, with architecture, with fashion. So I was curious why you decided to be part of Raritas, and what can you actually explore in this kind of context that you cannot in other contexts?
Yeah, indeed. Together with my team, work across quite a broad spectrum of design. Because it's such a broad industry, there's everything from mass production to one-off site-specific installations. And I think the collectible design realm is maybe the most uncompromising section of the design world where ideas are really driven by curiosity, experimentation, ambition, without so much the restrictions of maybe brand codes or price points or market targets. And I think for my studio especially, it's a really important part because of that experimentation, a lot of discoveries are made that then actually also feed into the other parts of the design world. So we're always sort of like jumping in between. And I very much feel that that is how a lot of studios work. And when I come to Salone with my projects, often people only see the brand collaborations or the more readily available pieces instead of those experimentations. So I think, yeah, it's really important and really exciting to get that opportunity to show really ambitious experimental projects. This at Raritas together with Collectional Gallery, where, yeah, it's very uncompromising and there is no brand link to it either, which I think I've done very experimental projects at Salone, but then there has been a brand involved. So then there is still an element of not 100% like the identity of me in my studio. So I think it's really cool to show that sort of wild side of design.
Perfect. So thank you very much e grazie anche a voi. Thank you. Allora, Raritas ovviamente non è, come abbiamo capito, l'unica novità.
Raritas is not the one piece of novelty for this upcoming edition. You remember Luxury Way Pavilion last year? It was welcoming Villa Heritage from Pierre-Yves Rousseau. This year, it will welcome Aurea, a brand new project being signed by Oscar Lucien Ono, who is interior designer and founder for Maison Numéro 20. Oscar, if you can join me on stage.
And Oscar, right now the stage is yours.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Grazie per l'invitation. Hello, my name is Oscar Ono. I'm French. I don't speak Italian, I'm sorry. Buongiorno a tutti. So thank you very much to the Salon to invite my studio. So I'm an interior architect based in Paris. My team and I work in hospitality in France and abroad. So for the Salon this year, we have imagined Aurea, which is an architectural fiction. So in French, it will be easier for me, so excuse me for my little note. So with this project, I would like to go back to what really matters and remind us a few simple things we may have forgotten. That design and decoration can take us on a journey, can create strong emotion and sensibility, and simply can make us dream and make us feel protected. So that's why we want to show with this little hotel that we will imagine in the... Sorry. So we imagine this, it's a dreamlike hotel, so it's a scenography with like a journey, and the visitor will become a traveler and will go from salon to salon, from room to room in a dreamlike hotel. So we imagine several rooms, like the Flush Winter Garden, with a monumental, we will have a monumental paper installation. This is the Infinite Library. We will also have a smoking lounge, a Art Deco smoking lounge, like the office of a collectioner. This is the 1,000 rooms suites, and so it's a journey. So it's what we want to, with this project, make a link with the golden, brilliant, and precious linear of Aurea. Aurea is an imaginary interpretation of a dreamlike hotel, a fragment of dreams that invite visitors to become travelers. So every space, this whole fragment of daydreams, So we will make emphasis with working with all the exhibitors to try to give our sensibility, to try to give an interpretation of luxury. And we also make some partnership with sustainability partners. We will work with a Spanish brand that uses plastic to create special installation. So this is all the kind of, we have many rooms, and this is only few special rooms that we will present you. I think it's fine for me. Sorry, in French it will be easier for me, but English is okay, but so I did my best.
Very good. So thank you very much again. Thank you very much. Bene, ora passiamo a uno insomma, sicuramente degli elementi fondamentali che
Okay, we are now moving to one of the fundamental thing of Salone, which allows us to very much understand more about the future. Salone Satellite, I'm kindly asking Marva Griffin to join me on stage. Big round of applause for Marva Griffin.
Ben arrivata. Buongiorno, Marva.
Welcome. Welcome and good morning, Marva. I will leave you the floor.
Buongiorno.
What am I supposed to say? Well, good morning. Good morning, everybody.
Bene, il Salone Satellite torna.
Okay, Salone Satellite is back this year once again. This is a 2026 edition, edition 27 for Salone Satellite. So this very year, Salone Satellite has actually welcomed an incredible number of applications from boys and girls and who wanted to attend, showing and sharing their creativity, ensuring that they can showcase their ideas to exhibitors and visitors attending the Salone, as well as visitors who will be attending the Salone Satellite. So for this edition, 2026, we're actually welcoming 700 artists, approximately. This is a number which does not decrease over the years. It means that many young designers and artists are happy and eager to show their creative ideas to the rest of the world. Interesting to see that Japan, for the first time, is actually the leading country in terms of a number of ideas being showcased. Italy is second, Germany, China, and so on. This year, we're also going to have a key topic, as it is the case every year. And for 2026, we're going to be focusing on a very unique presentation. Well, of course, it all stems from craftsmanship, skilled craftsmanship, but I don't want to unveil too much, so there's still something that you will see and discover for yourself. Also, we'll be awarding a recognition. You perhaps remember back in 2010, we started to award a recognition to our young artists with a very important jury of individuals. It's always been shared by Paola Antonelli, senior curator. She's Italian and she's now a senior curator at the Museum of the Art in New York. And by the way, we're shortly going to see a video where she's actually going to tell us about Salone Satellite.
Ufficio al Museo d'Arte Moderna di New York, sono Paola Antonelli.
Welcome to my office in the Museum of Modern Art in New York. My name is Paola Antonelli, and as a curator of contemporary design here at the museum and the chair of the jury of the Salone Satellite Award since its inception, I consider Salone Satellite to be one of the most vital spaces at the Salone del Mobile and of the entire week of design in Milan. If Salone Satellite is the global contact hub of design, its recognition, its award, is truly a sensor for the future. It's the place where we don't just look at what works today, but at what could become significant tomorrow. The award doesn't just celebrate a well-designed object, it intercepts a way of thinking. It's an emerging priority, a stance. Younger designers have a rare ability. They make visible the urgencies, fears, and hopes of generations to come. And through materials, processes, and production systems, they talk to us about the environment, equity, new economies, more responsible relationships between people and industry and planet. In this sense, their work is not only promising, it's actually necessary. Over the years, the SaloneSatellite Award has proved to be a true indicator of future trajectories. Some of the winners' pieces have entered MoMA's collection. For instance, the walker he made for his grandfather and others that are already included in the future exhibitions and projects such as Huno Kalabe in Japan, which recycles tatamis. This shows, in fact, that what we intercept here is not ephemeral, it's structural. The award does not have a fundamental value because it recognizes courage over consecration, but also researches over industrial scale, insight over market, and perhaps above all, it reminds us that design is not just a response to a brief, but it is rather an act of collective imagination. And at this complex moment in time, young designers do not offer us easy solutions, but something equally important, a vision, and with it, a concrete form of hope.
Grazie Paola. Allora, il tema del Salone Satellite quest'anno.
So the theme of the Salone Satellite this year, which concerns craftsmanship, as we were saying, will be craftsmanship and skills, craftsmanship and innovation. And I will be waiting for all of you there at the Salone Satellite. Thank you.
Bene, restiamo su questa immagine. Quella che vedete alle
So let's stay with this image for a moment. What you see behind me is a part of the campaign that was designed and curated by Motel 407, presented in December. And obviously it has been accompanying us throughout this presentation with its various topics and subjects. So to pick up on this red thread and talk about where this visual campaign of the Salone is going, we have Alessio Ferrari, photographer of this subject, which was dedicated to the Salone Satellite. Alessio, you have the floor. All right, good morning, everyone. My name is Alessio Ferrari. I am a photographer, and I do still life photography, as well as working on a personal research which talks about materials, matter, shapes, and light, together with other projects that are commissioned by companies in the design and furniture industry. I stand here on the stage before you because I was the author of the images for the Salone Satellite and the Raritas, Salone Raritas, which we have just seen. And this is a communication campaign that was designed in a very precise and careful way by this agency Motel 409, which I would take this opportunity to thank Federico Grassi, one of the founders, who is here with us in the room, and thank you for being here. To me, as someone born in Milan and as a photographer and someone passionate about design, it would say it's a big honor for me to be able to voice with my images such an important event for the city. But even more, it's an honor to be able to bring a form of craft, something handmade, and a research about materials and matter onto the whole visual layout, let's say, of this event. My approach to photography is based on a trial and error approach. So I try out things, I make mistakes, and only in the end, of course, that process leads me to the final image that is selected. That is why my work is strongly related to the work of designers in many ways, architects and designers. This research was developed and performed, let's say, trying to look for essential shapes. The campaign, in fact, focuses on one subject, a subject that is universally recognized, which is the egg. And it has always been a symbol and a sign of creation, of birth, and of raw material, and even of a synthesis of different elements. And that is precisely where the elements start to become, let's say, the protagonists of this story, of this narrative, because we are looking at a heavy egg made of imperfections, and it's an egg made of stone, the first one. Then it transforms and it becomes an egg of smooth wood. And then we see a more liquid egg, viscose, more changing egg of a very strong red color. And in the end, we have the glass egg, which is frail, metaphysical, and almost intangible. Now, matter, as we see, was taken in its raw form. And from this raw material, we then shaped it and reconfigured it as if the egg had always been inside that block of stone we saw in the beginning. This is a quotation that guided me in the composition of these images. So raw materials are imperfect, and that's exactly what makes them so interesting.
Their irregularities, their roughness, the way they resist control, all of that brings a sense of authenticity. In this sense, raw means honest. Questo è un overview di tutta la serie di immagini.
This is an overview of all of the series of the images. Following this, after all these images I created, we had two more working groups, and this was again to work with in a choral form, let's say, as a group, both about or within the world of design, but also when it comes to the creativity of images. So this is the contiguous side to the main campaign of images that we just looked at, which will lead us inside the Salone, and they will be seen within all of the city, on all of the billboards, on all of the walls. And here we also have chosen a series of raw materials which had the power, let's say, to be able to be shaped by man. So we have the blossom, flower blossom, we have the stone, we have wood, and then the sponge to close off. Thank you very much for your attention. Right, thank you. So, we've said this already several times. The big novelty we'll be talking about now is the one that has to do with contract, a new segment in our industry. This is a journey that has already begun, and the main point is that Salone has made a choice, which is the idea of sharing this itinerary with one of the most important and visionary signatures in this industry. In fact, the master plan of this project has been confided to Rem Koolhaas and David Jonathan from the OMA studio. I would ask, therefore, I would invite to the stage once again Maria Porro, the president of Salone del Mobile.Milano, and David Jonathan, managing partner and architect of OMA. Thank you very much.
E a questo punto, anche per voi, vi lascio il palco. Thank you very much. Thank you.
I will leave the floor.
So, David, thank you, first of all, for being here with us. As you have seen from the press conference, we always bring up a lot of subjects, but what guides us is to understand transformation and be innovative in a very consistent way, as Marco San Micheli was reminding us before. And there's this word that later maybe we will try to describe, which is contract. But there's a big question I would like to start from. It's the why. So why now? Why Salone? Why contract? Why OMA and our collaboration? And I can start from our perspective and the reason why to work on the project of contract, which is a project. We decided to ask your support and your vision Rem Koolhaas and Oma, it's like a salon, it's an ecosystem with multiple layers. The architecture, of course, at the core, but at the same time, the research is very important for you. The theoretical approach together with the practical approach, and also the capacity of creating architecture that have the longevity at the core, but also installation and exhibition that are temporary, so the value in temporary spaces, which is part of the Salone DNA. So we started our conversation months ago, a year ago, more or less.
Something like that.
So I would like to ask you why Salone is an interesting field of research for Oma, and what motivated you in embracing together with us what we constantly call a challenge?
Now, first of all, it's of course an honor to work with an institution like the Salone and to really be able to pick your brains, your data, and the information you have. But I think for us, working in the realm of urbanism, architecture, and also interior design and product design, we see that there are a lot of latent opportunities in the in-between of all these subjects. And bringing that together into a market system that really describes not an object, but much more an environment, and tries to create environments that have that longevity or durability, as we refer to often, but that also creates kind of a system of people to work together that normally not always work together, and try to synchronize the time zones and time frames they are working in is a very important thing in projects, because currently projects are very often perceived as a certain subject, but there are always combinations, and they always need to follow up one after another. And that is kind of where we see the opportunity to discuss more about this collaboration, this coordination, but also that typology of contract.
Yeah. So going to this word, contract, no? In one of our meetings, at a certain point, we said, well, we have to find a name, and contract still, it's a word that has many definitions. It's a familiar term, but also a term that it's hard to be defined. It's not obvious to anyone, and probably every company has its own definition of what contract is. But of course, our journey together will probably bring us to a complex definition of what contract is, and also from a physical point of view in the creation of the space dedicated to contract. But at this point, no, we are still at the egg, let's say. For you, from your perspective, you work on contracts day by day, every day. So what is for you contract, and what do you see in contract?
No, I think contract is not facing the idea of producing a product, but it's much more a process trying to create an overall coordinated outcome that for investors and for people that are going to use the space feel very obvious and take away all the worries and risks that lead up to the creation of it. And I think for us, the definition is always the in-between, the process, the discussion, the collaboration, and also kind of the sense of time, because it needs to be something that is not just there when it's finished, but that continues to live and to evolve towards kind of a future, incorporate new things. Very often these environments that you create are not there just for 15 days or a year. They are there for 50 to potentially 100 years. And that needs a total different collaboration and way of thinking to anticipate what might happen along that journey.
Yeah, I totally agree. So you mentioned the importance of working as a system to synchronize and the importance of the process before and after the delivery. So also the service is a very important part, not only the product, the project, the service, it's all part of this big word. So what the aim, the goal of our collaboration is to, and what we ask you is to create, let's say, a curatorial master plan, which is much more than designing a space. And somehow the master plan should be a sort of a open structure. So it's not a fixed drawing, but it has to be a working tool. For the company exhibiting, for the visitors, for the architectural studios participating, a tool to also navigate and identify focus areas, connection, actions. So when you are approaching now this project, what are your initial observations and how are you shaping your next steps?
Now, the initial observation is that it is a very complex matter, as we already just said. But I think that the main thing is to really bring people together onto that journey, to really try to see all the perspectives from kind of somebody that invests a lot of money, is focused on revenue, to the producer that produces a very high quality idea that needs to deliver it, to the designers that needs to ensure compliance, that need to kind of make sure that durability and longevity really is incorporated in the vision. And then also the people that are using it and maintaining it and bringing it into the next step when it is realized. Kind of how to describe all these elements and how to bring them together is difficult because we also are across a lot of different trades. You can talk about contracts in offices, which is kind of very well known, but also in hospitality, kind of in more and more in healthcare, more and more in private homes even, because of large developments worldwide, into the sky even. And then, of course, you touch upon things that are also on the luxury side of life, like yachting and all kind of cars, all these type of elements become projects that kind of create this environment people want to live in. So how to unpick that into a curatorial master plan is still part of the research we're doing. And we don't have the answer yet, but kind of I think what is interesting is that we're starting this journey already now in 2026. Talk about it in a forum, try to get information from all the actors that are involved, and then try to translate that into an open system or a structure that mimics this market space for people to come together. So not only to come and consume exhibits, but actually to come together to discuss what is needed to create these environments that more and more are asked by the market. Of course, also the geopolitical system that is currently there worldwide has an effect, has a huge effect on collaboration, has a huge effect on production, has a huge effect on quality and where quality comes from. And that also needs to be incorporated. How do you bring the right actors together and how do you shape that maximum amount of quality?
Yeah, that's a very good point because sometimes when you think about platforms like Salone, everybody's more focused about the physical experience, rather than the fact that actually those platforms, especially Salone, is there to create a physical experience together with intangible values. And one of those is the possibility to create connections with the players for example, in this case, the players of contract. So there's a sort of audience that is already involved in Salone, but we are working together to increase the quality and the number of these very important players that are also very fragmented and different from the geographical point of view, from the, let's say, typologies. So we are thinking about hotel chains, developers, public institutions. So it's a very complex work. Then, of course, the architectural studios, the specifiers. So it's a very complex work. As you mentioned, of course, the pavilions, we open up the doors of the pavilions in 2027. This is the goal. But 2026 is already a very important milestone in the Salone contract project. It's a sort of public experimentation. That's why we ask you to curate the forum dedicated to contract, when we will also have Rem Koolhaas giving us a special masterclass lecture about contract. Yes, I was trying to find the right
experimentation. Maybe is better word.
Yeah. So why this phase of public experimentation is so important?
Now, when you approached us, you gave us a timeline that was very fast, and we got back to you by saying we think that we need time to make an analysis, but also to speak to the people that are part of the Salone to really understand how they would see this in-between space, this larger global scale of coming together and working together. And to hear from them first, kind of how they would navigate an ecosystem or a market system like that. And to do that is by experimentation, to explore, to ask, to be critical, to try to understand all the difficulties in this, but also the opportunities. Because I think what is really important is that contracts give this idea of kind of latent opportunities that still need to be defined for the market. They're looking for what can we do on the global scale, what can we do in a larger sense, and how can that be coordinated. So to hear from them will inform us how to kind of move ahead in 2027 and give them a platform that really brings out these opportunities.
Yeah, we think that the Lectio Magistralis of Rem Koolhaas would be a big opportunity for everybody, but also this zero edition of the contract forum will be again an occasion not only to discuss about this subject, but also to meet the people involved at the head of the chain. We will also create contract pathways inside Salone to connect exhibitors that are already investing and producing contract projects. And this is this year. And of course, we are investing a lot, hosting delegations of international top players starting from 2026. So we are building up a community. We are creating a stronger community in this sense. But if we now look at the 2027 horizon, so we have been talking about method. What's the method? So the method is the research, listening, choices, the fact that we all agree that this challenge needs experimentation. I would like to close talking about 2027 without anticipating, so keeping the Hague close. It's not an image to share on the screen. It's not a format already decided, but it's more a convergence, let's say, a path that wants to build continuity, not to create a special event that then disappear, but really to help and support the industry in evolving in this sense. So how, David, an open process would be able to embrace and absorb the change, to help the shift in the focus, understanding the context, very complex context of the future. So how do you see this horizon of 2027?
Now, we see it as kind of a pavilion that opens up like a forum, much more than a series of exhibits. So it's going to be something that will nurture projects and will show projects and will show the outcome of projects and maybe even objects that play a role in that. But it is much more a living organism that will accommodate that process while everybody is here in Milan, while everybody is participating in this important fair. And fairs are for experimentation. And we should also remind the people that it is not something completely new contracts. Kind of in the Middle Ages, kind of it was already there that public buildings would be delivered from the architecture and urbanism all the way to the object. And that becomes more and more important now. We are incorporating the digital world. Now we're incorporating kind of the imaginary, and now kind of the race to quality and luxury becomes even more important. So for us, it's going to be an ecosystem that nurtures that discussion, but shows the relevant aspects and invites the people that are part of Salone already to really explore this global scale and the much larger coordination between parties.
Yeah, it's true. You use the word larger. Somehow contrast brings the word big. It means big question, big impact, big risk, big opportunities, big challenge. Well, for sure, architecture can't predict the future, but maybe can make it possible. And this is what we are trying to do together with this challenging project. So thank you for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Grazie. Thank you very much, David.
Thank you.
Allora, per chiudere questa mattinata, ovviamente vogliamo dare uno sguardo reale.
This morning, obviously, we want to take a real look at the supply chain, and I will ask Claudio Fertrin, President of Federlegno, to come to the stage, please.
Prego. Buongiorno.
Good morning, everyone. Right, so today we are presenting the first estimates for 2025. I put some figures on the slide. How did it go for the trade fair this year, which was definitely a very intense year? Well, for the supply chain, I can say that with these pre-estimate stages, we are closing at a plus 3% compared over the previous year. And that's an almost exceptional result, I have to say, because we had actually set off and the first 3 months of the year being very concerned, considering what was happening in the United States and also listening to the intentions of the American president. And we saw, however, that the impact was lower or less than we had predicted or feared in the early months of last year. So in the American market, specifically, we lost a little bit of share, but less than we were expecting. And it's also true that this is an overall number, of course, because in the last months of the year, it's only then that you start to see the actual effects, let's say, of the tariffs. And the other part that people don't talk about a lot, which is the loss of value of the currency. I mean, the dollar compared to the euro, which is also concerning us at the moment. But it's also true that we have shown that the supply chain was able to face this storm because furniture is sold all over the world. So we have a percentage of more than 50% of what is produced in the supply chain, which is exported. So to us, the whole world, let's say, is an export market. certainly with very important shares. We are coming back very well in other markets. But in fact, the numbers, as you see, are generally positive. But the Italian market also contributed significantly because it is responding very well and has been doing so for some years already, thanks also to the incentives, of course, that we have received, and also for this year. The incentives will remain. Of course, we have good expectations. However, yes, the international market also has been stable, and the prediction for this year, the estimates for this year is that we will, of course, tread carefully because the international scene, as we have said earlier, is still, let's say, quite complex, and the turmoil is not over yet. And we need to be able to face these difficulties. But we also see interesting and positive results, or let's say signs, from the market from 2025, which in the past had been more troubled. The markets, for instance, the German market, the English market, which are showing positive signs now. So the fact that our companies are able to also preside these markets in the most difficult times and are able to stay on those markets is thanks to the fact that we can interpret those signs, which make it seem that there may be a change of course. And this is definitely, I would say, something positive. It's a hopeful message, and it's also due to the skill that our companies have of presiding and reacting to difficult times. And since we are at home here at the Salone del Mobile, we are able of using, let's say, this very big showcase, which is the products of our supply chain, even in moments of great difficulty, and also generating new opportunities in new markets that can continuously be generated, because already now, for instance, we have this agreement we just signed politically with India, as you have seen, I'm sure. So there's a great potential over there of 1.5 billion people and consumers. And of course, we will have to look at that, because one thing is the political agreement, another thing is the actual implementation in practice and what this will mean for us as a supply chain. Of course, it gives us a lot of hope, because we're coming from, let's say, a disappointment concerning the expectations we had with the Mercosur agreement, which seemed to be able to open up a market that was culturally ready to receive our products, but was still very closed due to the tariffs. But in fact, the agreement that was signed, when we look at the details, didn't really satisfy our expectations. So it doesn't make any difference, let's say, in the markets. The markets are going to be still very complex due to these tariffs. Another important thing that I would say is, we're talking about tariffs, so we have the Chinese market, which obviously for some years already has been showing negative signs, but China has two faces substantially, as a customer and as a competitor. So we're losing on both these fronts, right? Because the Chinese market, for political reasons, due to the construction crisis, for instance, that this market is going through, we're losing shares in terms of exportations as exporters. But the Chinese manufacturers, since they have to recover shares that they are losing in the United States due to the tariffs, they're now trying to look for alternative markets. And certainly the European market is one of their goals, because it's the richest one, the largest one from the economic point of view. So as a federation, and we represent the entire supply chain, of course, we are working, and we want to work with the government and with Europe in order to increase not so much the tariffs, because increasing tariffs in the long term can have negative aspects and negative effects that we cannot measure. But we can definitely act on the controls of the products that enter the European market, because, just to quote a research that was recently carried out by Latin Europe, which is the European organization that represents all of the producers of lighting fixtures. And they did this research by purchasing products on the market coming from that area and testing them. And the results were 100%. 100%, I mean, were out of standards, so they were not complying to standards. So basically, these products cannot permeate into our market. We need to be able to defend our companies and also defend our consumers from these kinds of products. Because if the products are not in line or do not comply with our regulations, and these regulations are not just pieces of paper, but they have been made to defend our consumers and to have quality products in our markets. And our companies produce quality products, so our products are all certified, but of course they have costs. So we are facing also sometimes disloyal competition and unfair competition. And this is something that we see on the European market, where we export about 80% of our products. So we need to defend our market. In China, that's why I say China has two faces. Right. There's no doubt that the world is very complex right now. But if you, as an entrepreneur, were to give us 3 antidotes, let's say, to the situation that an entrepreneur can implement to get beyond this obstacle. Well, let's say, I don't want to be too bold, but let's say, I would say Salone, Salone, Salone are the 3 words I would suggest. Oh, okay. Right. But it's true. I mean it seriously also. Salone is not just an event, right? It's not just an occasion to meet up with friends and colleagues, but it is the distilled essence of our entire supply chain. So it's everything that our companies bring to the market in 1 year of sacrifice and hard work. And this is a showcase that shows what our companies have done in 64 years to be leaders in the world on the global stage. So another thing, of course, would be research and the possibility of interpreting trends. So also the SaloneSatellite, as we explained just now, and as Barbara Griffi, but also Paolo Antonelli explained very clearly, these are very important antennas that we as companies need to be able to enhance and maintain, because reading the future is the winning card to be there in the future. Yes, so to conclude, if you were to ask one thing to the institutions, right, to guarantee that this thing could actually be implemented, what would it be? Well, substantially what I said before, so defending the territory in a smart way. Tariffs are definitely not a smart way to defend yourself, because, as I say, they definitely bring along negativity. Maybe they could give us small advantages in the beginning, but definitely in the long term they are negative. And the fact of defending yourself by just upholding the existing standards and regulations that need to be respected by everyone, I think that's a much better way of defending ourselves as European companies, Italian companies, and also for anyone who comes to this market to sell. Thank you. Thank you very much, Claudio, for being here. Okay, so we have a video now from Matteo Zotta, who couldn't be here today. And he is the president of ICA, and he's always been with the Salone del Mobile forever. Good morning, everyone. And I greet you, Maria Porro, president of Salone del Mobile.Milano. I also bring my greetings to President Attilio Fontana and Mayor Beppe Sala, as well as to President Claudio Fertin from Federlegno Arredo. The Institute of Exterior International Trade has been working with the Salone del Mobile for years to give this event an international scope and all the activities that are part of it. Under the mandate of Maria Porro in particular, we have been able to bring the Salone del Mobile to the world, and we have been able to bring entrepreneurs to clients, not just the other way around, as we usually do in Italy. I also need to bring my congratulations to this vision that really gives an even more international scope to the whole event, and in particular Federlegno Arredo, which is one of the main categories, of course, of made in Italy products in the world. It's a spearhead that we use as Italians to tell our story to the world. We have new customers at the Salone del Mobile, important strategic customers that have been chosen strategically together with Federlegno. And we also bring about 120 journalists who will be present and are the soul of the communication and promotion of the Salone del Mobile, of course, every year, and the showcase towards the world to tell our story even better. But I think the most important novelty, which was already announced by Minister Antonio Tajani and Maria Porro, is this new project of being able to establish Salone del Mobile in Riyadh. And of course, Maria, we will be supporting you in this, together with all of the design that we can provide, as we have always done in the past. And this is the will of the Ministry of international affairs. And this is, once again, I want to bring my congratulations to everyone, to Salone del Mobile, which has been able to build this message, as I like to call it, of soft power of Made in Italy, of our industry, let's say. And in itself, this is a combination of promotion and development of Made in Italy products and Federlegno Arredo. We will be supporting you always, as every year, and especially this year we have important difficulties, which are the American tariffs, the currency exchange between US dollar and euro, markets that close from one moment to the next. We stand beside all our companies to try to always find new solutions to facilitate and improve the process of internationalization of companies, as well as the first steps to begin this process, especially for smaller and medium-sized companies. There's an important impulse, since this is 1/3 of the GDP, 620 billion euro. And it's an export that is growing with an important impulse in Italy. And the government is pushing very hard on this, as well as we are. We are their armed part, let's say, and we will be able to continue supporting them to bring home these results, a big and successful result like Salone del Mobile, which has a great capacity of reaching all of the opportunities that lie outside Italy.
Bene, per chiudere, a questo punto lasciatemi invitare sul palco Marco Sabetta.
I would love to invite on stage Marco Sabetta, General Director from Salone del Mobile.Milano.
Allora Marco, noi ovviamente fino adesso siamo concentrati
Marco, now, so far, we're very much focused on the week of April, although we do know that there are several initiatives run in parallel to Salone, so there's a much broader story, right, rather than the one we told. Well, of course, now, good morning, everyone. Drawing conclusions is not going to be easy. First of all, big round of applause to Alberto Mattiello, who was talking us through this whole event, throughout this beautiful morning. Thank you. Now, back to your question. I'm happy to actually spend a few words right after Matteo Zoppa, President of ICE. What we're doing all around the world is made possible by the support of Ministry Tajani, Cantill's ICE, President Zoppa's, and the whole team of ICE, both in Rome and around the world. It is only thanks to them that we can rely on the needed resources to be able to talk through Salone all around the world, but also we can actually rely on an important concrete support that literally allows us to be present in 4 different continents. I would love to remind everyone that we started attending China. We were actually doing this for 4 years in a row, and no longer is going to be the case from now on. But we've been in China for 4 years in a row. We've been in Riyadh for 3 years promoting Salone, and this is also what is happening right now for 2026. We are traveling all around Europe. We've been to Berlin. We're going to be in Paris and Madrid over the next few days. We're going to be traveling to United States. There's a group of my colleagues who are traveling to India, following agreements that have been signed recently. We've been in Canada, Mexico. Literally, we're going to be covering all of the possible countries that might be interested in what we do here with Salone del Mobile. You might have seen that the program for this year is very rich in content, novelties, but above all, passion. And that is exactly what you're going to find when you come and visit us during the exhibition. Many ideas, many different projects, and different collaborators traveling from all over the world, and novelties such as Raritas and Contract and everything else that is still to be unveiled. But it's not just that. Let me just share with you the companies that will work for us, that will work with us and for us throughout the next Salone. These are all of the brands that will be attending. Well, you got a flavor around numbers by Maria Porro a few moments ago. These are our partners. Our partners have been with us for a number of years. I would love to thank the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, of course, the ICE. I'd love to thank authorities who came today, municipality, region Lombardy. I would love to thank Fiera Milano, which is our daily partner in developing this whole project from scratch. Let me tell you something. Salone del Mobile is not ours. It is everybody's. It is yours. It is everyone's. Again, every single year we do have one mission: to keep Salone at the very top of a mountain. And all of you, thanks to your job, thanks to your efforts, can actually help us in preserving and keeping this marvelous exhibition, which is not just ours, as I said. It is very much everyone's. Every one of you attending, and everyone can really provide their own contribution to keep the flag of Salone del Mobile stand up high. Maria Porro, Claudio Feltrin, President Gianfranco Marinelli, Managing Director from 520, Luca Palermo, Andrea Vaiani, and all of our collaborators within Salone. So all of us, we bring this forward. We look forward to seeing you April 21 through 26 for the 64th edition of Salone del Mobile. Thank you all. Thank you all. Oh, yes, just one last thing. Tickets. February, we're going to be starting selling tickets. And, of course, it will be an online ticket. Okay, thank you.